And now we're going to move on to our ESC survey report that was conducted by Colleen Wheeler. Colleen Wheeler is an advanced practice provider in the NICU at Lutheran Medical Center, and she's also a member of our steering committee of CHoSEN Quick. And she has been the lead for the ESC key driver, and I'm sure you've heard from her when she sent out this ESC survey, and she'll be sharing with us those results. So Colleen, feel free to tell me when you'd like me to advance slides.
Okay, thanks, Susan. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So we sent out this ESC survey report in the summer and then again in the fall of 2019, and this was sent to all participating CHoSEN Quick hospitals. And we were looking to assess the ESC resources and training, the actual implementation process itself, and then the ESC assessment tool, and then also looked at other aspects of ESC care. So we focused on 4 domains, and those include the training resources for and the implementation, the ESC assessment tool, and then management practices of infants with NAS, and then also looked a little bit at family engagement. So it was sent out to 19 hospitals, and 13 hospitals completed the survey. Next slide. So looking at some of these responses, when looking at, have you fully implemented the ESC care model? So out of the 13 units, 11 had and no had not, and 2 had not. And then looking at if the unit was actively collecting and entering data into the CHoSEN REDCap, 9 were and no were not at the time. And then also not on here also was asked about the resources utilized to implement it. And for the vast majority, it was the resources provided by the CHoSEN Collaborative, which included the videos, attending the how-to workshop, and I think there was 1 unit that had developed their own materials in-house. So next slide. So when asked about what are the challenges or barriers to ESC implementation, these are general themes of those responses, and that was meeting attendance and buy-in from all staff and providers, a low SEN volume, which would lead to management questions, inconsistent interpretation of the ESC ratings among the nursing users, and then actually having space for these parents to room in with their infants, staff turnover, and then also having the time or personnel to do the data entry. Next slide. So then when asked what strategies were utilized to overcome these barriers, we had general themes of providing more staff education and holding regular meetings, and then also having accessible meeting times that would allow for increased collaboration between the units of nursery, NICU, and labor and delivery. And then also 1 unit stated they put the NNPs completely in charge of consults, managing all these SENs, including in the well baby nursery, and then also in charge of educating the nurses and pediatricians. The use of on-call cuddlers that would help to provide non-pharm care to these babies when staff was unable. And then also rehousing these babies in the pediatric unit that would allow for more room and then allow for families to be able to stay with their infants. Next slide. So when looking at the ESC care tool itself, and in terms of how well users were understanding it, using a general Likert scale, all users understood it fairly well, which was 8 out of 13, or very well, 5 out of 13. And then asked how they could improve it. They said they would add more checklists. And then also there is this confusion of the use of the yes, no for each item, and which response indicates the baby is doing well. Next slide. And then when asked about describing any concerns that staff may have with using the ESC care tool, these were some of the comments that were received. So it's hard to know when to wean morphine with use of ESC. More direction here is needed. Again, the space issue of having a place for families to stay that could really optimize the tool. And then just a broad understanding with staff that patience is important, and that if an infant requires pharmacotherapy, it's not a sign of failure. And then concerns of how process change will look in situations where a mom cannot be with her baby. And then also the need for long-term follow-up data. Next slide. So moving on to looking at NAS medical management, the question was asked if your unit is currently utilizing PRN medications. Here, the vast majority responded, yes, they are using medications, and that was 9 out of the 13 units. And the other 4 units, 2 said not yet, but they are planning to. And then the other 2 responded not yet, but they currently have a protocol in place. Next slide. And then looking at feedback on the use of PRN medications, overall, this has been very positive, and looked at as a very good change for the treatment of these babies. As you can see some of the comments here. This first one, by using PRN dosing, we have been able to completely eliminate the need for scheduled methadone. This is the most remarkable change we have seen so far, and it is exciting that all of our providers are on board and are realizing that PRN doses work. And again, just overall, it has gone very well. Everyone is supportive. And then just the comments of overall using far less meds to treat these babies, which is resulting in a decreased length of stay and admissions to the NICU. Next slide. So looking at the units in terms of who's using morphine and who's using methadone. Well, 2/3 of the unit, or 66%, are using morphine, which is indicated in blue here. 22% are using methadone, and then 11% are using both morphine and methadone, and they're leaving it up to provider preference. Next slide. And then when asked about what the pulse oximetry monitoring policy is in their unit, only 1 unit stated that they are using it for infants observed for NAS, but no medications currently needed. Another unit stated they use it for infants who are receiving a PRN or rescue dosing. And then 9 other units say they are using it with scheduled dosing, or when an infant is receiving scheduled dosing with an opiate medication, like every 3 to 4 hours. You could answer more than one of these. So I believe the unit that stated they're using it on a PRN basis is also using it on scheduled infants as well. Next slide. So, and then when looking at family engagement, the question was, what level of engagement has family members had in the care of opioid-exposed newborns in your unit? And it was very high and also very positive here. And it says some of these comments included, since we are focusing on non-pharmacologic care, they are involved quite a bit. Most families are fully engaged and accepting of the process. And then you can see a little bit of change here where stated where it's variable, depending on whether the mom is available or if there's space for the mom to be able to stay. So again, here, good engagement when able, again, emphasizing that need of farm care is not a failure. And then the space issue comes up again. Since they cannot stay overnight in our unit, it is difficult to engage them in participating. Next slide. So with the question of how well has the ESC care approach been received by families? So overall, this is very positive, and either it's been fairly well or very well. And next slide. So, oh, and one other thing I wanted to add here too is that when asked what improvements could be made with family engagement, it basically had 2 general themes of better prenatal education, which is one of our focuses currently, and then also just space or rooms for families to stay longer. Okay, next slide. So in summary, just looking at, where do we move forward from here? So overall, I think it's very positive, our process of implementing the ESC tool and model of care. So we will certainly continue our current process of providing ESC training videos, PowerPoint presentations to staff, and then also case studies that the staff can review so they feel comfortable utilizing the tool. And then of course, ongoing education. This is something that's come up in my own unit where sometimes it's not clear with some team members exactly when is a team huddle needed. And who's involved in these team huddles, and then when do we use medications? And this education can occur at regular SEN committee meetings and has really gone a long way in terms of getting all staff comfortable with utilizing the ESC care tool. Of course, continued data collection, and which will allow us to also have some long-term follow-up studies. And then just regular review of current practices and policies either in the individual units and then just here as a collaborative, and continue to share those policies and data that we've obtained from this process. So, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Colleen. Colleen truly has become the ESC expert here in the state. And to think, just about 2.5 years ago, she made a trip out to Massachusetts to attend their how-to workshop, and now truly has become our go-to person in Colorado. So thank you very much, Colleen.